What's up, guys? We are back with another Star Wars Black Series review, the latest and greatest Walmart exclusive, certainly a figure that everybody in the Star Wars community definitely wanted to get a hold of. We are, of course, talking about our Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker, or more specifically, Jabba's Palace style Jedi Knight Luke, and I cannot emphasize how much I have wanted this figure because this has always been my favorite version of Luke, and I've really been wanting an update to that original figure. So we've got this guy here in our standard Black Series box, figure in the window, artwork down there on the side, no number of course because he's exclusive, and then the back has a small write-up and more of that artwork. So let's do it. Let's pull him out and take a look. And here he is out of the package, our Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker from Return of the Jedi. My long-standing favorite version of Luke. There's really never been any competition. This has always been my preferred look for Luke, and we've had this figure before, sort of, well, in one way or another. We'll talk about that more, but we have some new stuff this time around. So we've got the cloak, we've got a vest, and we've got, well, what I think is the best head sculpt we've ever gotten for Luke in the Black Series. This one actually gets his likeness down pretty good, and I will go as far as to say that it's better than the figure arts, and we're going to do a comparison between that older Return of the Jedi figure arts as well. But let's get started and take a look and see how he moves around. There is nothing new on this figure as far as articulation goes. If you have ever messed with this figure before, the old Jedi Knight Luke, you know what you're going to get into here. But we're going to remove the cloak first, just so you can actually see what he does. So the head can't really look up too far, but he can look down. You can rotate side to side. The arms rotate at the shoulder and they go out farther than they really need to, but that works well. You've got a single hinge, rotating elbow gives you about 90 degrees, lateral hinge with rotation on his left, vertical hinge with rotation on his right. He has a waist twist. You've got legs that go out only about that far. They kick forward about 90 degrees. They kick backwards a good bit. You do have a thigh cut, double jointed knees, goes pretty much all the way back. And then you've got rotation and rocker, hinge, all that good stuff at the ankle. So it's pretty much exactly what you would expect. It's very standard Black Series. He is, however, kind of limited. I'm not going to say that he's very dynamic or mobile. He certainly has a few things that I'd like him to do that he really can't. He has a hard time removing the hood off the cloak, just for example, because of how his arms are structured, things like that. He's definitely older Black Series. But truly, what it's all about with this figure, just like I say so often, it's all about the looks here. This guy is more about style than, how he moves around. And of course, to talk about that, for starters, we have to put the cloak back on. This thing is good and bad. Black Series cloaks, soft goods, they never truly hit the mark. And when it comes to hooded characters, they always miss a little bit. This is probably one instance, I haven't done it yet, where I will be going a third-party route. I never do, really. Not even rarely. I never do, because I just don't normally like to justify that cost. But this figure I want to have as perfect a look as possible, and this is pretty good. Don't get me wrong. If you're someone who doesn't want to spend the extra money, which I still struggle wanting to do, if you don't want to spend the extra money, this works pretty well. It does seem to have a little bit too much material at the hood, but it does hang pretty well. I do have a second figure, and I'll explain why shortly, and his cloak was all wrinkled and janky out of the box. This one sits a lot better. I do think the pleats are pretty good, but it just seems like there's way too much up here, and it's also really hard. See, like, that's a lot of material, and it's also really hard to get it to stay back as well. You kind of have to tuck it in on itself to make it want to stay backwards. So, which works decently enough, but I don't think it's where I want it to be for how important this version of Luke is to me. So again, your mileage may vary on it. It's one of the better things that we've gotten out of Black Series, but I think it sort of misses the mark just a little for me. Misses the mark, no pun intended there. So we will take this off, and underneath that cloak we do have, again, the same old body that we'd had with the original Jedi Knight Luke. You can actually see that piece of the chest that pops off because he had the reversible shirt. So you had the original shirt with no flap, and then you have the one with the flap on it. So you can go beginning of movie, and then you can go end of movie. And this guy, though, is meant for beginning of the movie, where he's got the vest, where he's got the cloak. This is your Luke Skywalker specifically in Jabba's palace. Now, the articulation on this guy is a little dated. It does suffer a little bit, but he does look really good. You've got updated skin tones on the hands here, and then you've also got updated skin tones on the neck as well. But you've got the vest piece here, which is incredibly tightly placed on this figure. It doesn't really want to come off too easily. It's obviously put on before the figure is fully assembled, but it looks really good. It's got nice pleats in it, not really any paint, but it's a nice subtle change of color to break up the figure a little bit. And then this guy has a bit more of a matte finish this time around than the original Jedi Luke. But, I mean, obviously, the big thing here is 100% the head sculpt, the face on this figure. And this is, without a doubt, the best Luke head sculpt we've gotten from Black Series, as far as I'm concerned. We do have other newer head sculpts coming out for like the Yavin Luke, which I have not gotten to yet as of this review, and it's really good as well. But this head sculpt is absolutely nailing it for me. And it's a different head sculpt. It's a different face. It's different face printing because Mark Hamill looked a little different at this point. And he's a little bit older, a little bit more battle-hardened, a little bit more weathered, and this is, again, my preferred look for Luke. And I cannot stress enough that I think they really nailed it. For a $20 figure, to surpass it's old at this point, but to surpass an import figure of an order of magnitude greater in price, I think Hasbro should really pat themselves on the back for this one, because this head right here sets a new standard for me when it comes to Black Series head sculpts, and I'm hard pressed to think that they're really going to top it anytime soon with anything else. This thing is almost as perfect as it can get for me for my money, for the $20 price tag here. And then just to give you an idea of just how different this really is, we've got a comparison, the only way I can really do it. We've got our new figure in the middle, we've got our original Jedi Luke here on the left, and you've got the figure arts on the right. I will in no way say that the figure arts isn't better in articulation, likely in design. I still think it's a really solid figure, but the likeness is not there for me when you compare the two. For the longest time, I thought this was really, really good, and it's still quite good, but this just blows it out of the park for me. Of course, there's really no comparison with this thing, an early Black Series figure that definitely does not hold up in any capacity. So you can really get an idea of what Hasbro did to better themselves, but then you can tell that they absolutely went after Bandai on this one, and I really think they killed it. Now, as far as accessories goes for this figure, you have two, and these are accessories that kind of pinpoint this figure at certain points in time. And I know that has been a thing for a lot of people on how you really are going to display him, because when Luke has the cloak on, he really doesn't have anything. R2 has his lightsaber. He doesn't yet have the gun. So you've got to take the cloak off if you really want to be more accurate to the screen. So you do have the gun that he gets, and he fires, on the barge. So you've got that. It does have some nice weathering and definitely some extra paint detail. It makes me wonder if we're going to see this being used by, a skiff guard or something later down the road, because it's not really something that Hasbro is going to make and just not use again, because we haven't seen this before. Right? Someone correct me if I'm wrong. And then you've got Luke's lightsaber. So he would again have this after taking the cloak off, after R2 ejects it towards him. And this is different from the one that came with the older figure. It's got different paint detail, a little bit different sculpt on it. And of course the blade does come out on this as well. So you can hook it on to his belt. But of course this one doesn't have the belt, because that was only part of the older figure. So it does have the same handle and the same clip, but he actually can't holster it. Or can he? So I had slightly touched on the fact that I was going to talk about how to make your own figure. And I was able to kitbash from the old figure and a new figure into the actual final dual Luke Skywalker. So what you have to do requires you to take some parts away from the new figure and take some parts from the old. Of course, you have to take the tunic off, the vest, and that takes a lot of heat, at least in my experience, a tremendous amount of heat to get that thing to come off. And then you pop off that inner shirt piece, and then you can pop on the flapped piece, the one with the white showing, from the old figure. You also need to remove the belt from the old figure, and you can put it on the new. And then you also have to remove the gloved hand from the old figure. This also took a lot of heat, and the peg seems to be slightly different too. And then you can pop it on to the new figure, and then you have what Luke looks like at the end of the movie versus what he looks like at the beginning of the movie. The easier option probably would be to just take the new head and put it on the old body, but then the skin tones don't match, and I did not want to do that, so I went the slightly more difficult route, and I think he looks really good. This one here is my preferred, but I think they look exceptional. These are going to go on 2 different areas of a shelf. This will go with Jabba's stuff. This will go with Palpatine, with Vader, stuff like that. But you can easily, relatively speaking, make this figure if you have the parts from the old and an extra new one. So can you guess? I really like this figure. He does have a few things that don't necessarily excite me. I do think the cloak is still a little bit short of perfect. It's better than a lot of stuff we've gotten in the line, but it doesn't sit exactly how I want. And he is on an older body, but at the end of the day, this figure is 100% about this head sculpt. I really can't stress that enough. That's the important part here, and they absolutely killed it. I have no problems with the head sculpt, with the face printing. It is fantastically done on this figure, and I think Hasbro, again, should be patting themselves on the back for this one. It has set a really high benchmark for a lot of other figures to meet going forward, and I'm truly looking forward to seeing if they can beat this one, because it absolutely does what they set out to do. This is, again, my preferred version of Luke, so I am a little biased with this look, but you are definitely missing out if you don't get this figure. It is something that everybody should have on their Black Series shelf. So that's going to do it for this look at the Walmart exclusive Jedi Knight Luke Skywalker. Let me know what you guys think. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and until next time.